Episode 208, Breaking Free from SMART Goals with Ken Williams.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with the coach? Here we go.
In this inspiring episode of Latter-day Life Coaches, Heather welcomes Coach Ken Williams, who shares a refreshing perspective on goal setting. Together, they explore how traditional SMART goals may limit our potential and introduce Ken's revolutionary stupid goals framework. With personal stories, insights from his coaching journey, and actionable advice, Ken helps listeners rethink how they approach goals, failure, and personal growth. Tune in for practical tips and a whole new way of seeing what's possible. Please enjoy.
Well, you are joining us today for another episode of Latter-day Life Coaches. And I am joined today by a coach who I have not had on with me before, Coach Ken Williams. Hello, Ken. How are you?
Hello, I am doing great. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. If you're not watching, people can watch us on YouTube. A lot of
Uh-huh.
people can listen via the podcast. If you're not watching on YouTube, you're missing the cat, like that needs to be with Ken at all times, apparently. Oh,
She loves to be in my office, and she just kind of hangs out until I start talking, whether it's a call or a podcast. Even if I'm just recording my own podcast, then she comes over and she just starts checking things out. And so you'll
yeah.
see her tail in the
Yep, there's the
in
tail.
the
I love it.
video.
It's perfect. What's the cat's name? We should at least know the name.
Oh my goodness, this is a point of contention.
Oh,
Her name
okay.
is Laverne.
Okay.
I think it's a stupid name,
I think it's a
and
great name.
I shouldn't say that if my wife is going to listen to this, but it's based on the fact when we got her from the shelter, and she would just perch onto higher places in the house. And she reminded my wife of one of the gargoyles from Disney's Hercules. And I guess,
Hmm.
which I don't think I've seen it, but Laverne was the name of one of those. And so they just called her, my wife and my son called her Laverne. And she
Well,
just is very curious and she loves to wander around, and she'll leave me alone after about 5 minutes of being in my space, and she'll go back and take a nap, and it's all
I
good.
I love it. Well, you're joined by Laverne, and I'm joined by Shelly, my dog, my little
Nice.
lap dog, Shelly. Our dogs all get Idaho names. So
Okay.
Shelly is, and we have an Ashton and a Chubb,
Nice.
and we've had an Oakley and a Chalice. So anyway, I always think it's fun to hear where people get their animals' names. So Shelly and Laverne will join us today, along with
There we go.
myself and Ken. All right, Ken, before we completely derail the conversation and talk about our pets, maybe you could share with people a little bit about you.
So my favorite part of my story is that it was about 2.5 years ago that my wife was listening to a podcast with Jody Moore. And she came to me afterwards and she said, "You should do that. You should be a life coach." I was working at FedEx at the time, having a career that I really enjoyed. And so I decided that I love the idea of helping people. I've always loved helping people. And one of my superpowers is asking questions that get people to think. And as I explored getting certified, I just fell in love with it. I was um, one of my early clients. I was one of my early clients where I realized some of the things that I was doing to block my own success, my own progress, and have really just had a great experience with myself as I've learned my coaching tools, but also as I've helped other people. So that's the recent version. I grew up in California, and I'm the oldest of six, married my wife 34 years ago. She's the oldest of seven. We live in the Indianapolis area, just a mile and a half from where her parents lived. And we love it here. We love the Midwest, and 5 kids. We have 5 kids ourselves. And life is good. Life is so much fun. And a lot of that is because of um, I've realized that I don't have to wait for somebody else to make decisions about my life. I did that for most of my life, most of my career. And when I realized that I am the boss of my own life, things just opened up, possibilities. It's been so much fun.
Hmm. I there's probably a play on words here, but not really. When you said I realized I'm the boss of my own life, I'm assuming that you have had plenty of bosses in your past.
Sure. Yeah.
And so like we take that and we're like, yeah. And when you realize that no matter if you have a boss that in your profession, like you are ultimately the boss of your own
Yes.
life. And there's just so much to glean from just knowing that.
Yeah. I have been just kind of thinking through my own story and where did I get some of the beliefs that have not served me well? And it's surprising how a comment that doesn't mean anything becomes a core or a foundational belief. And so I was actually reviewing some of this yesterday as I was just thinking about where have I been? Where have I come to? I remember a conversation I had with my dad. I was probably a freshman in high school, and we had just gone to get ice cream, and dad is just giving me advice about life. He had left corporate America. He started his own business. He was an accountant, and he told me that you need to find a job that is going to give you stock options and give you a company car. And so he's telling me this corporate America dream that doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But he had left corporate America to start his own business. So that disconnect, I'd never thought about that until I started thinking about, okay, so why did I end up where I ended up? But it was a an evening with my dad where he's just telling me, here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to focus on. Here's the kind of job I want you to, you need to have the safety or the security of corporate America. When I was a senior, he told me that, well, I had this huge dilemma. I really wanted to be on the yearbook staff. And I had this idea that I could write. And dad said, no, I don't support that. You need to take a business class instead. And I defied him. I took the yearbook class. I was so excited about that. I have my stories in the yearbook, my photos in the yearbook, things that I did are in the yearbook, and it's interesting that I don't know that either one of those was the quote right
Right.
answer. I I pursued things because of that. I've got a couple books that if you're watching, I've got several books, including these two that I have in my background, where I've written books. I've done more of the creative things where my dad's vision for what was right was more of the traditional, the secure, the safe, get a job, start at the bottom, work your way up. If you do a good job, they're going to notice, they're going to promote you. You're going to get the next step, then you'll get the stock options, then you'll get the company car, which I never got. I did get a company cell phone, which was nice. But the problem with that is it
And
keeps ringing.
yeah, that's true. And you're right, that doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, it maybe
No.
does for a very select few, but that's just not the reality of the life that we live in, the
Yeah.
society that we're in. Yeah.
And so I don't think he was trying to set me up to fail. He was trying to teach me the things that had worked really well for him. And some of those worked really well for me as I grew up. He talked a lot about respect and responsibility. Make sure that you're taking responsibility for your actions. Respect others and their agency. He talked a lot about goals. In fact, he passed away in December, and so at his funeral, my siblings are all talking about lessons from dad, and it was respect, responsibility, and goals were the three lessons that he had just burned into our minds. And in some ways, those have been tremendous lessons. And in some ways, they've been uh, a huge challenge
Mhm.
because I think I want to honor my dad. I want to honor his teachings, but some of the stuff just doesn't work. The stock options that doesn't exist anymore. I worked at FedEx, and they have great benefits, but They don't have the company car, for for example. They do have and the interesting thing, as I've looked back, I think what I did, because this company culture changed, the corporate America culture changed. I then valued benefits. The benefit wasn't the stock option, it wasn't the company car, but it was the discounted shipping. So I can ship still, because I retired from FedEx. I can ship a package for a tremendously discounted rate, which is wonderful. Opportunities for me to fly standby. So as my dad was, his health was declining, I was able to fly from Indianapolis to Portland, Oregon, and it would cost me $50 to $80 a flight each way, instead of the $400 or $500 that the airlines were charging. So I had these tremendous benefits, but those benefits were keeping me from moving ahead. Other companies I would work for had other benefits that I've heard people call it the golden handcuffs, and I was so tied to these advantages that even when I was thinking about taking early retirement, the one of the ideas that always shut my plans down was, well, I'm going to lose the benefit. I'm going to have to start paying full price for shipping. I'm going to have to start paying full price for airline tickets. I'm going to have to start paying full price for name the benefit. And that creates a huge conflict when you're trying to take steps to improve yourself, but you're being held to the past, and the subconscious mind doesn't always recognize how flimsy that connection really is. Because if I started to think about it, I'm talking about a few dollars, really. How often do I ship a package? Christmas time, maybe a couple birthdays. How much am I saving? So I'm staying in a situation at work where it got to the point where it was very challenging in a lot of different ways, and I was not willing to take a step out of that because I might save $100 a year, and that just sounds so ridiculous.
Yeah. Isn't it so amazing what we see when we actually second guess what our brain is internalizing?
Yeah.
It's pretty
And we just
crazy.
get this general anxiety that I can't do that. I
Yeah.
can't step away. And so that's kind of where I left FedEx. But then I started to really dig into some of the things that Dad taught, and what was working, what wasn't working. Why was it working for him? Why was it not working for me? Because I thought I was the problem. I'm the
Mhm.
problem. And so that started me on my absolute hatred for SMART goals.
Well, I was going to say one of the things you mentioned that your dad taught you was like had ingrained goals in you,
Yeah.
right? So maybe let's talk about that a little bit. And you just said SMART goals. So can you explain what that is? What SMART goals and why have they gained popularity in, as a framework for goal setting, especially since you said you hate them?
I hate them. They're evil. This is uh, so I did a little bit of research, and the term SMART goal was created by a man. His name was George Doran. This was not that long ago. It was 1981. He wrote an article, and it was in response to corporate goals being kind of flimsy. And a lot of times when we set goals, if you think about New Year's resolutions, a lot of times our resolutions are things like, I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to go to the gym this year. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to get promoted, or what. So we have these things that sound really nice, but there's no substance to it. How much weight is weight? How much health is more healthy? And so the term SMART goal, it's an acronym. SMART stands for specific, measurable, A is attainable, R is relevant, and T is time bound. And it's a brilliant acronym because if a goal is a SMART goal, it's so great for marketing. You got to make sure you set SMART goals. And so that's where it came from. And the advantage of the SMART goal is it forces you to really analyze, what is it that you want? How do you make it specific? I want to lose weight, not specific. I want to lose 20 pounds, specific. Is it measurable? And this is where I get a little bit critical of SMART goals, because specific and measurable really kind of the same thing. Measurable, some weight, not measurable. 20 pounds, measurable.
I have to laugh really fast because it sounds like you're saying miserable. Is it miserable?
Miserable. They are miserable. Measurable.
Measurable. Okay.
But goals
Just,
are miserable too
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. I just thought
A
it was
is
funny because I'm
attainable.
like, oh, it could be either one.
Yeah.
Attainable. Sorry.
A is
Attainable.
attainable. And so I'm not going to grow 8 inches so that I can be an NBA player. So that's probably not attainable. But starting a business is attainable. Relevant. Relevant gets a little bit confusing because that's not a word that we use all the time. It just means, is it connected to my purpose or my ultimate, my larger, grander desire? And then time bound, you want to have some kind of a timeline. If I'm going to lose 20 pounds, is it going to be this decade? Is it going to be this month? Is it going to be this week? Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be before the end of, by the time the wedding happens or the high school graduation or high school reunion? So you want to have some kind of a timeline so that you know what you're working with. And so it's a great start. The problem was Dad would talk about SMART goals, but there are some problems that I didn't know existed until I started trying to set SMART goals, and they just weren't working.
Okay. So what are those problems? What are the limitations that you saw there?
I've counted at least 4, and they're probably
Okay.
more because they're horrible. They're evil. One of them
Miserable.
is they're miserable. So problem number 1, and I actually wrote a book about my better way of approaching goals. And one of my criticisms is SMART or specific and measurable. That's kind of lazy. It's the same thing. It's 2 ways of saying the same thing. Maybe they should have used a different word for M instead of SMART being specific and measurable. Maybe specific and motivational. But one of the problems is that attainable. What is attainable? So one of my goals from about 15 years ago, my wife had told me that I needed to write a book. I had a story that I wanted to tell. I had a message to get out to the world, and she said, "You need to write a book." And that was such an unattainable idea. And so I never even set the goal. Now, fast forward 15 years, and I've written several books, and I know how simple it is. You can have an idea, write a book, and have it in your hands in less than a week. And that is literally true. I've done it more than once. And so there's no idea of what's attainable, because what I think is attainable, that's going to be my framework for setting a goal. And which means I'm going to filter out all the stuff that I think is not attainable. The problem is you may know that there's an easy way to do that. But if I don't know what you know, then I'm going to ignore potential life-changing goals because, in my opinion, they're not attainable. So we assume attainable has to be something that we know how to accomplish. Another one is, let's just say that if I'm in a sales position at work and my history, let's just say $100,000 is what I sold last year. And so I'm going to set a SMART goal. I want something that's attainable. I know how to do 100,000. I'll set a goal for 110,000. So a lot of times we set goals based on our history. This is what I've done. I'm going to step it up 10% or 20%. And that's a problem because why are we looking to our past to set goals for our future? It's just not a dynamic. It's not a creative way to set accomplishments for ourselves. So those are a couple problems. Another one that I had a couple things that I I wrote down that are my criticisms of SMART goals. Time bound. This is another problem that happens as we're setting goals. If let's just say I wanted to lose 25 pounds, and I'm going to do it by Friday. It's Wednesday. And so I could lose 25 pounds in 2 days, It probably wouldn't be the right way, wouldn't be a healthy way. But I'm just guessing. I don't know how long it's going to take for me to lose 25 pounds. And there's nothing in the SMART goal framework that tells me how I'm supposed to handle failure. So Friday comes and I'm down a pound. And the way that I used to look at things was there's one more thing I couldn't do. And that would just be heaped onto my stack of failures, which is a hit to the self-esteem. And uh, I went through that so many times so that I'm gonna get the promotion by this date. And it didn't happen. Well, there's one more piece of evidence that I'm no good at this. The other Another problem. It's not the other problem because I could probably come up with a dozen problems with SMART goals. Another one is we're not taught how to set goals. We set goals like I'm going to get on the New York Times bestseller list. Well, that's not something I have control over. I can do things that may make it more likely, but somebody else is making that decision. I've got 3 sales appointments today. I'm going to sell all 3 of them. Well, that's somebody else's decision. I can make 100 phone calls, or I can work out for a number of times. I can do a certain number of repetitions in my workout or whatever. There are things that I have control over. That's what I should be setting my goals on, what I can control. But so many times we set goals that really violate the agency of somebody else. And that's not right. That's not fair to them. So those are a few of the criticisms. Like I said, I'm sure I can come up with a lot more. But one of the big ones is the failure, because we never discuss failure with these SMART goals. If I got to the end of the week or the month or the year or whatever, and I hadn't hit, and really what happens is for the New Year's resolutions, mid-February, well, I haven't gone down in weight the number of pounds that I expected. So obviously I failed. I give up, and we stop the goals altogether. So those are some of the problems that I have personally experienced with SMART goals, and where they have kind of left me behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if it's easy to see where those shortcomings are, and totally understandable, right? Like I think we probably all bumped up against something in that you've described there today. But what then would you say is a better framework of, if we're not going to use SMART, SMART goal setting, what would be a better way for us?
Oh, I think any other framework. I don't know that a framework has to necessarily exist, as much as we need to understand what works and what doesn't work. And for me, I had a friend who said, you can't just stand for something, you got to stand against something. So I stand against SMART goals, and I've created stupid goals. I think stupid goals is the way to go. And I thought about all sorts of different acronyms that I could use, but stupid seems to fit because the goals are stupid. Because we've been trained to think about goals the wrong way. So I set up this framework. My book is called The Stupid Goal Blueprint. It's the antidote to toxic SMART goals. But stupid goals, what I've tried to do with the acronym STUPID is to fill in the gaps that SMART goals create by emphasizing the purpose of the goal, what it is that it's supposed to accomplish, and it gets us off of achieving the goal and into the journey, which I think is more important. The journey that's where the thing happens. If you think about a marathon, for example, which I can imagine why anybody would think about a marathon, much less run one. But you've got your starting line that's very narrow. You've got 26.2 miles, and then you've got your finish line. And we assume that the goal is the finish line, and not what happens, what we experience, what we change, what we develop, how we become a different person during that 26.2 miles. But it's that middle part that is the part that defines us, that makes us who we are. And yeah, it's great to get to that finish line, and you can hold up the medal and have your picture. All that is wonderful. But it's also fleeting because I can't tell you how many times that I get the paper, I get the picture, I get the whatever, and I think, that's it. But if I think, oh, I'm so much more this, I'm so much more healthy, I'm so much more whatever the goal is leading me towards, it's changed me. And it's less about accomplishing that thing and more about who I am, what I've become over the course of that journey.
Mhm. Yeah, what is the old saying that it's it's not about the destination, it's about I'm getting it wrong, but that's really the reality of it. It's the journey, it's
Yeah.
not the destination. There we go. I think that's what I was trying to say. So, can you provide us then a framework of an example of a goal and demonstrate maybe what it would look like using your stupid goal approach compared to the smart goal approach?
So this was a goal I didn't know I had. And this is a it was a situation that it surprised me because I didn't realize what I was motivated by. I thought, for example, that I would be motivated by money. I've got my vision board and I've got the car that I want to get. All this stuff. I thought those things would motivate me. And I learned, and mostly because I wasn't taking action towards those things, I learned those things didn't motivate me. And so I'll tell a story and then how, because I had to reverse engineer it. I realized I was walking through fire, basically, to accomplish this goal that when I look back, I thought I didn't even want it. I didn't even care. But the framework all fit together. So I'm a creative type. I graduated with a degree in advertising. A couple of years ago, my oldest son, he had moved out of the house and realized that we were not the idiots that he thought we were when he graduated high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so he reached out and he said, "Hey, I'm interested in getting my ham radio license." Now, I all I know about ham radio is that you have to have a license to be able to broadcast, and I didn't have a license. That was the story that I knew. My father-in-law was a ham radio operator. I knew that he loved it. But I didn't understand any of it. He's an electronics engineer. It was a foreign language. So my son Brendan and I, we worked towards the entry level, the low level test, which was the technician test, and he and I passed within a couple of days of each other. So we both had our ham radio license. Fantastic. I didn't do much with it other than I bought a radio that I could broadcast on, and I used it one time to see how far away we could be from each other and actually hear. That was it. So fast forward a couple of years to this past January, my father-in-law passed away, and he had his license plate on his car was his call sign. His call sign was N9 AWK. And Brendan, my son, discovered that he could inherit his grandfather's call sign. That sounds great. That sounds great to me. But he told me that for him to inherit the call sign, he would have to upgrade his license, get the general level license. And I thought, well, sorry that you have to go through that. So I did some research and I found out that I could get a vanity call sign myself. And I found one that was similar to what my father-in-law's call sign was. His one was N9 AWK, and the one that I could get was N1 AWK. I thought that was really cool. But then there's also N2 and N8 that were all available. And so I just had this idea that how cool would it be if I had N1 and my wife had N2 and my son had N9 and another son had N8, and we could just line our cars up and we'd have these license plates N9, N8, N2, N1. And I thought that would just be fun. That would be really cool. And then I thought, well, I've got to if I'm going to do this, I need to get my general. I need to upgrade as well. So I worked on that. And then I realized I didn't need to, but I'm already in. And then the third level is technician or the extra. This is the advanced. And I thought, I'm already halfway there. I might as well do it. So I decided that I was going to get my extra. And I I found a study guide. There are about 440 questions. And this is a foreign language. It would be like me learning calculus in Russian. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense at all to me. But I was going to do it. And so I made the commitment. I'm just going to do it. And so this is about May of this year. And I took practice tests and I studied. There were videos that I watched all over my head. I read the transcripts, didn't understand it. I would take practice tests. I would fail those. And then as we got a little bit deeper into this study, I realized that the FCC changes their questions for the test every 4 years. And for the extra exam, they were going to change all of the questions July 1st of 2024. I learned that in June. I don't have a whole lot of time if I'm going to do this. So I've got a deadline is June 30th. I have to pass my test by June 30th. And so I started ramping up my studying efforts and studied instead of one module a day of about 24, I did 2 modules a day and then 3 modules a day. And I did practice tests and I studied what I missed and I did more practice tests and I studied again and I did more practice tests and I failed. And the morning of the test that I took, which was on the 29th of June, I had taken a couple practice tests and I was about 40% sure that I would pass. And the time came, I left, but I knew if I don't pass this test, I can come home, study a little bit more. I can take a practice test. I can take another practice test. I can study the rest of the day Saturday. I thought about this. I was driving and I thought, what was so important to me? Why was I trying so hard to get this test, to pass this test? And I don't even, still, it's been a few months. I don't even know what I can do with this license. Well, I got my extra license. And so I realized a couple things. So stupid goals are a stretch. Your goals should make you uncomfortable. And this absolutely made me uncomfortable. It was something that was way outside my comfort zone. I had to and still have to learn a lot to be able to really implement what this license means for me. So stupid, stretch. Key, tangible. This is where it's similar to the specific measurable in the SMART goals. It's tangible. It has to be something that I can actually experience. And when I talk about tangible, I want it to be real. I want it to be something that you can visualize. I didn't realize I'd done this, but I had this image that I had in my head of the 4 cars with all of our license plates matching lined up. That was enough to make it real for me. That was enough to make it tangible. Tangible also means it can't be I'm going to lose more weight. I'm going to be nicer. All that. It has to be something that I can define. How do I know that I've accomplished it? I have this piece of paper that says I accomplished it. You is unshakable. You're going to make a decision that you are not going to change your mind. So I made the decision that I am going to pass this test. I'm going to pass this test. And when it was hard and when I hated it and my wife was laughing at me because I was struggling with something that didn't make any sense to me, I was not going to give up. I was not going to let this stupid test beat me. And so unshakable. And we have to be unshakable. We have to be so committed to it that we're not going to let anything get in our way. P is possible. And this is where I define possible a little bit differently than attainable, because for me, possible means somebody, sometime, somewhere has accomplished this. It is possible in the realm of human history for me to pass this test because there are hundreds, thousands of people who have passed this test. Is it possible for me to? Absolutely. Is it possible to write a book in a week? Absolutely. Is it possible to lose the weight? Absolutely. Is it possible to, whatever it is it possible? Has anybody ever done it before? Now, that doesn't mean that, the 4-minute mile, Roger Bannister when he crossed that 4-minute mile threshold, it had not been possible. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about our standard goals that we're going to set on a regular basis, maybe coming up in the first of the year. So possible. Inspirational. It has to excite you. And what excited me, I did not realize that this had that kind of an impact on me. But when I imagined those 4 license plates, that was inspirational. I thought that would be so cool. What a way to honor my father-in-law, for the 4 of us to have similar call signs to his. And that, it was inspirational. It was exciting. And if your goal doesn't excite you, then you're not going to go after it. A lot of times our goals are goals that we think somebody wants us to achieve, or we think we have to achieve because that's what the boss or the spouse or somebody else says. No, it has to be your goal and it has to be exciting to you. And then D is development. Your goal is going to develop you. It's going to change you. You're going to be different once you hit that goal than you are today. And that's the purpose. We are incredibly bad at guessing. I don't know how long it's going to take for me to lose 20 pounds. So I guess 2 days. And if I'm wrong, the way the stupid goal framework is, you're going to develop. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn from our mistakes. Okay, so I failed that ham radio test. What categories do I need to? Okay, I need to study more about antennas. Great. I'm going to study that. I'm going to adjust. I'm going to take the next step. So it's not so much about the accomplishment, hitting that finish line. It's more about, what do I need to change so that I can be better set up to hit that finish line. And when I realized that going after the black convertible that I thought I wanted and thought that I have wanted for 15 years, but I haven't made the progress towards, and here's this stupid ham radio test that I went through misery to be able to pass. There was enough of a disconnect that I really had to examine what's the difference. And it was that was it. It was something that was going to be inspiring to me. It was going to be something that was going to change me. I was not looking at failure as the end of the line. I was looking at failure as a lesson. Okay, so clearly I don't understand standing wave ratios. Let's read up on that and try it again. Okay, so now I don't understand how waves propagate. Okay, let's read up on that and I'll try again. And that the accomplishment is so great. But what I learned about myself, what I learned about how I can work towards something difficult, that part was life-changing. Plus, I got my ham radio license.
Well, that's always a bonus, right? When it's like
Yeah.
you learn some life skills, which is that the way to set those goals, and you're accomplishing that goal at the same time, which is it perfectly is a perfect example of what you talked about. Like, it's not the end, it's not the destination, it's what happens along the way that leaves the mark. So yeah, thank you for sharing that experience with us. We don't have much time left, Ken, but I'm curious if you could tell us how, like, if somebody is wanting to transition from, that smart goal perspective to the stupid goal perspective over like a short period of time, how can someone successfully do that?
A lot of it is just, you're going to think about goals differently. So number one, you're not looking for the finish line. Your eye is not on that prize. That's a byproduct. That's a bonus. You're looking at, what do you want to become? And that's a difficult question to answer, because to answer that question, you have to know what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know what you want, if you are willing to work towards it, not giving up, then the goal, the process, whether you call it stupid or smart or something else, that process is going to move you in that direction. There are a couple of words that we use, I think, incorrectly. And one of them is fail. I failed. I was trying to do this and I failed. No, there's no failure. My dad had a quote that he loved: "You never fail until you stop trying." And I didn't understand how true that is until I was going through this process myself. The failure that's only a lesson. It's like Thomas Edison when he was trying to design the light bulb. Well, that didn't work. What can I learn? That didn't work. What can I learn? And then make the adjustments and move forward.
Easy.
Yeah.
It makes it sound so easy.
It's super easy, but we beat ourselves up.
Yeah.
We get. It's like I was saying earlier that with this SMART goal mindset, I just assumed that if I missed the goal, I was a failure. It wasn't that I just guessed wrong, or
Mhm.
it was a goal that was really my parents' goal. It wasn't my goal, or it was my boss's goal. And you can turn those things into your goals, but it has to be your goal. It has to be something that you want, and you have to know um, why you want it. You have to find out what your inspiration is behind it, and then the not stopping, being unshakable, is just the willingness to learn from your mistakes, adjust, and move forward. That's your development.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ken. I think you've taught us some good bite-sized ways of like shifting our mindset towards accomplishing the things that we're going after in our lives. So, and we're all doing great things. So let's like I think the better we can get at doing those great things, the more great things we're able to accomplish. So Ken, before we go, can you share with people where they can connect with you?
Easiest way to connect with me is my website, kenwilliamscoaching.com. And if you want my stupid goals anti-planner, which is my little dig on the SMART goals framework, stupid goals anti-planner, you can just go to kenwilliamscoaching.com/stupid. And that'll send you the anti-planner, and you can kind of understand a little bit more about what stupid stands for and how you can take what you want, put it through the stupid framework, and accomplish what you're hoping to get.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll link to those things in the show notes. But Ken, we appreciate it. Thanks for giving us some great instruction today. I surely appreciate it.
Been fun.
Yeah. Have a good one, everybody. And say goodbye to Laverne. Laverne's tail is no longer.
She's bored now. She's
That's
over on
great.
the
Yep.
couch.
She's heard enough about stupid goals.
That's right.
All right. Well, have a good one. And we will see you all again next time. Thanks for joining us. Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.